conference with her new teammates, talking about the Chicago Sky and Angel Reese and playing against them. Correct me if I'm wrong. Everybody keeps telling me, Angel Reese, Defensive Player of the Year in Unrivaled. Last year. Not this year, last year.
That's Angel Reese's new teammate, and she just said she drops 30 points every single time Angel's on the opposing team at Angel's introductory press conference. While Angel is sitting right there, this isn't just awkward, this is a full-on roasting session disguised as a welcome party, and it gets so much worse.
That's going to translate to her game. Oh, no, okay. So the Atlanta Dream teammates basically said, we were able to do anything we wanted at absolute will. We became Jedis on the court against the Chicago Sky. We just thought about cooking their ass. Shit started roasting on the court. We started cooking ribs and chicken right there on the court. Let's go.
Question actually for everyone but Angel. How would you guys no offense,
Notice how she's trying to save it at the end. I'm glad she's on my side now. But the damage is done. She just told the entire basketball world that Angel Reese is not a threat offensively, that guarding her is easy, that you can literally stand outside the paint and dare her to shoot because she's not cash money. And here's what makes this absolutely brutal. This is supposed to be Angel's moment. The Atlanta Dream just traded for her. They're holding a press conference to introduce their new centerpiece. The organization is trying to build hype around this acquisition, and her own teammates are up there explaining in detail how easy it was to cook her last season.
how would you guys describe what it was like playing against her the last 2 years?
I mean, anytime Angel's been on the other side of the court, I think I've had about 30.
Wow.
Angel's annoying as hell to play against, so it's great that she's on this side. We've obviously had our fair share of battles, but you know what I'm really excited about is her competitiveness. Like on the court, when you know you're going against her, like you have to make sure that it's on for every night. But like she taught cash money, so you got to make sure you're on. So being able to go against that in practice and see that and it be on your side, like it's funny. So
You want me to tell them? So I text Angel and I was like, I ain't gonna lie, last year I love playing against Chicago because I had my best game. But no, playing against Angel, I always be like, dang, like, how she grab all the rebounds? And then like when we be at the free throw line, like I'll be like, I'm not even like going in like you got the rebound because she's just so like strong. So it's just like me being a guard, I'm not finna battle with a post for a rebound. So I mean it's very competitive and fun, but I can't sound glad.
Stop. Rewind that. I always be like, how's your bare foot on the rebound? And then like, move at a feet on the line, outside of the line. I'm not even like going in. She's describing her defensive strategy against Angel Reese. And the strategy is, don't even bother guarding her tightly. Just stand outside. Watch her miss. Box out for the rebound. That's it. That's the whole game plan. This is the player who won Defensive Player of the Year in Unrivaled. The player who averaged a double-double as a rookie. The player who's supposed to be this elite rebounder and interior presence. And her new teammates are casually explaining that they treated her like a traffic cone on offense.
I couldn't even make it through. I couldn't make it through it, folks. Introductory press conference. Like this is the big leagues. Like this is the NFL. We're introducing all of our new free agents. Actually, it's just a regular team with a couple of pieces added, right? Just a regular team. We already know this league can't function in a.
The moderator can't even get through the introduction without the awkwardness setting in. Building a foundation brick by brick. The irony is not lost here. Brick by brick is exactly what Angel was shooting last season. But let's talk about what's actually happening in Atlanta right now. Because this press conference reveals something way bigger than just teammates being honest. This is about expectations versus reality. The Dream traded for Angel Reese expecting to get a foundational piece. What they're discovering is they got a player with massive question marks on the offensive end.
Normal way when asked about players on said team, We're shutting that down. We can't have that kind of question. Wait a minute. What? We got a couple of things. We got Angel Reese getting cooked by her very own teammates. A lot of people are putting the over-under on about 22 games before Angel Reese absolutely implodes the Atlanta Dream.
He's right to question it. This is a regular season roster move being treated like a franchise-altering acquisition, and that disconnect tells you everything about where Angel Reese actually stands in this league versus where the media wants you to think she stands. The Chicago Sky clearly decided she wasn't part of their future. They reloaded with actual talent, brought in players who can score, defend, and fit a modern system. Meanwhile, Atlanta is holding press conferences and letting their current roster accidentally expose the player they just traded for.
She showed up more prominently on this graphic than she did the Indiana Fever's ticket selling graphic. What are we doing? What? I feel like the Fever had completely lost the plot. They lost the script. Right here, Phoenix Mercury putting up this biggest show in town. Kaylee Copper, Caitlin Clark. Thursday, July 9th. I mean, it's just like they get it. They get it. It's crazy. Absolutely crazy.
Now this is fascinating. The Phoenix Mercury understands something that most WNBA franchises apparently don't. Marketing works. Caitlin Clark sells tickets. She drives ratings. She brings eyeballs to your arena and your broadcast. So Phoenix puts together this graphic, biggest show in town, featuring Kaylee Copper and Caitlin Clark for their July 9th matchup. And notice what they did at the bottom. Whether you've been here for 10 years or 10 minutes, greatness is happening right now, and you're invited. That's how you grow a fan base. That's how you capitalize on momentum. You don't gatekeep. You don't lecture people about being real fans. You welcome everyone and sell the product.
But it's such a crazy ass look that an opposing team has got a better idea of how to handle this situation and the marketing of the superstar, not just a superstar, the superstar. By the way, didn't disrespect fans for how long they've been fans. Whether you've been here for 10 years or 10 minutes. Greatness is happening right now and you're invited. Wow. Well, I mean, that's sort of refreshing. What in the world? That's so unlike any WNBA franchise right now.
The contrast is stunning. Phoenix Mercury, an opposing team, has a better marketing strategy for Caitlin Clark than the Indiana Fever does for their own franchise player. Think about that for a second. The Fever should be plastering Caitlin's face on billboards across Indiana. They should be running premium ticket packages. They should be maximizing every single opportunity to monetize the biggest draw in women's basketball history. Instead, they're putting out graphics where she's barely visible and they're letting other teams show them how it's done. This isn't complicated. Caitlin Clark generates revenue. She broke attendance records. She delivered the highest-rated WNBA games in 2 decades. She's the reason casual fans are suddenly paying attention to this league. And Phoenix gets it. They're treating her visit like the marquee event it actually is.
Aliyah Boston, Indiana Fever 3-time WNBA All-Star. Aliyah Boston signing a 4-year, $6.3 million contract, giving her the richest total in league history. Zach Miller of WME Basketball tells Shams, Alexa Philippou, and Kendra Andrews. Wow. How about that? That's awesome. A lot of congratulations from a lot of faces that I know, beloved faces in the case.
Aliyah Boston just signed a 4-year, $6.3 million contract with the Indiana Fever. That's the richest total contract in WNBA history. And look at how Caitlin Clark's fan base responded. Pure congratulations across the board. This matters because the media spent all of last season trying to paint Clark supporters as toxic, racist, and divisive. They created this narrative that her fans hated the rest of the league and only cared about one player. But when Boston gets paid, when another player achieves success, the response is
Caitlin Clark fandom. I'm always hearing how vicious the fandom is. Boy, there sure seems to be a lot of congratulations going around for a bunch of alleged racists. What's going on here? Media got it wrong. They always get it wrong. Caitlin Clark, absolutely congrats, AB. People getting paid. Is there a chance that Caitlin Clark somehow, she going to end up getting like $15 million? Is there a chance? By the time they spread, I could see them giving her a contract all the way through the end of this CBA and then escalating the money each year till the end of the CBA. They could do that. What would that be? 6 years? 6 or 7 years? They could, in theory, you would start getting up around that probably $10 or $12 million range.
Caitlin's response is perfect. Simple congratulations, no drama, no making it about herself, just genuine support for her teammate getting compensated. And this raises the obvious question, what's Caitlin going to get when her contract is up? Because if Aliyah Boston is worth $6.3 million over 4 years, what's the player who actually drives the revenue worth? The player who sells out arenas, the player who gets games moved to bigger networks because her ratings are so high? The math doesn't even make sense at this point. Caitlin Clark deserves something closer to $30 million a year based on the value she generates for this league. But the WNBA's salary structure isn't built for that kind of reality. The CBA caps what teams can pay, and that creates this absurd situation where the league's biggest star is dramatically underpaid relative to her actual market value. They could theoretically spread a max contract across the remaining years of the current CBA, start lower, escalate each year, and get her up around 10 to 12 million by the end. But even that feels inadequate when you look at what she's actually done for the sport.
Fever. What? I see the names as they scroll. I'm like, but Brianna Joe, I'm like, oh, hell. The length on that squad is absurd. It really is. They could have panned the camera in on Angel, and she'd have been like, "Hello, darkness, my old friend." She got cooked, absolutely cooked. Now, what is interesting is we've all seen the Chicago Sky. They reloaded. Yeah, they ain't rebuilding. They reloaded. All right, and brought in some real, honest-to-God talent. Is Chicago Sky and Atlanta Dream suddenly is that a must-watch game? What? Is that possible? That could be a game that we all got to kind of look at now as a potential war on the court? It's interesting. Atlanta Dream got a squad. I don't want to act like they don't. But yeah, Angel got cooked. The Sky got cooked. Rotisserie grilled. Like Angel on the things going around and around, and Atlanta Dream teammates just throw another shrimp on the barbie.
Now let's get back to Angel Reese and this Atlanta situation, because there's a bigger story developing here that goes beyond one awkward press conference. The over-under right now is 22 games before Angel Reese implodes the Atlanta Dream locker room. And after watching her teammates casually disrespect her at her own introduction, that timeline might be generous. Here's what people need to understand about team chemistry. It's not built on fake politeness, it's built on mutual respect. And respect in basketball comes from one place: production on the court. When your teammates believe you make them better, when they trust you in crucial moments, when they see you putting in work and getting results, that's when respect develops naturally. But when your new teammates are already telling stories about how easy you were to guard, when they're laughing about their defensive strategy being just stand outside and watch her miss, that's not the foundation for a healthy partnership. That's the setup for conflict. Think about what happens the first time Atlanta loses a close game and Angel goes 4 for 15 from the field. Think about what happens when she's demanding the ball in the post and her teammates know from experience that possession is likely ending in a brick. Think about the frustration that builds when one player's limitations start costing everyone wins. The Chicago Sky figured this out. They watched Angel for a full season. They saw the shooting percentages. They saw the offensive limitations. They saw how defenses could neutralize her by simply giving her space, and they made a business decision. Reload with players who fit modern basketball, players who can space the floor, players who make their teammates better instead of requiring the entire offense to work around their weaknesses. Atlanta is about to learn that same lesson, but they're learning it the hard way. After the trade, after the press conference, after committing resources to a player who might not be the answer they thought they were getting. And there it is, the realization that Atlanta actually has a legitimate roster now. Aliyah Gray, Ryan Howard, Jordan Canada. These are real players. This is actual talent, which makes the Angel Reese acquisition even more confusing. They had pieces, they had a foundation. They could have added a player who complements that core, a floor spacer, a versatile defender, someone who fits the modern game. Instead, they brought in someone whose game requires the entire offense to adjust around her limitations. But here's what's genuinely interesting. That Chicago Sky versus Atlanta Dream matchup just became must-watch television. The Sky reloaded with talent. They're not rebuilding, they retooled with an actual plan. And now they get to face their former player who's on a new team with teammates who've already gone on record about how easy she was to guard. The storylines write themselves. Angel facing her old team. Her new teammates trying to integrate a player they've historically dominated. Chicago's new roster trying to prove they made the right decision moving on. That's compelling basketball drama. The length on Atlanta's roster is legitimate. If they can figure out how to use Angel effectively, if they can hide her offensive limitations and maximize her rebounding, they might have something, but that's a big if, and it requires Angel accepting a role that might be smaller than what her ego demands. Here's the reality that nobody wants to say out loud. Angel Reese is a good rebounder. She works hard. She has value in specific situations, but she's not a franchise centerpiece. She's not someone you build an offense around. She's a role player who got marketed like a superstar because of her college rivalry with Caitlin Clark. The difference is that Caitlin's game translated to the professional level. The shooting, the court vision, the ability to make everyone around her better. That's why Indiana built their entire system around her. That's why she's breaking records and driving revenue. Angel's game didn't translate the same way. The rebounding is still there, but the offensive limitations that were hidden in college by superior athleticism, those got exposed in the WNBA. And now she's on her second team in 2 years, with teammates who are already publicly questioning her offensive capabilities. Atlanta Dream fans should be nervous, not because Angel can't contribute, but because the expectations around her don't match the reality of what she actually brings to the floor. And when expectations exceed reality, that's when things fall apart. The press conference gave us a preview, the teammates being brutally honest about how they used to guard her, the awkward attempts to walk it back, the underlying tension of everyone knowing this situation might not work, but having to pretend it will. 22 games feels about right. Maybe she proves everyone wrong. Maybe she develops a consistent jump shot and becomes the player Atlanta thinks they're getting. But the smart money is on this ending exactly how Chicago Sky's tenure ended, with the team realizing they need to move in a different direction. And when that happens, when the Atlanta Dream eventually moves on from Angel Reese, the question becomes, where does she go next? How many teams are willing to take a chance on a player with clear limitations who comes with media attention that might not match on-court production? The WNBA is a 12-team league. Roster spots are precious. Teams can't afford to carry players who don't fit or who create more problems than they solve. Angel's window to prove she belongs as a featured player is closing faster than people realize. So watch that Atlanta-Chicago matchup closely when it happens. Watch how Angel responds to facing her former team. Watch how her new teammates actually use her in real-game situations versus how they talk about her in press conferences. Watch whether the Dream can figure out something Chicago couldn't. Because if Atlanta can't make this work, if this becomes another situation where Angel's limitations outweigh her contributions, then the narrative around her is going to shift dramatically, and no amount of media hype or social media followers will change what happens on the actual basketball court. The game doesn't lie, the stats don't lie, and teammates who've guarded you know exactly what you can and can't do. Atlanta just found that out the hard way at their own press conference. Now they have to figure out if they can turn that brutal honesty into actual winning basketball. The clock is ticking.